Thank you very much, Tim. Now we're going to do our two questions from our mailbag. We actually had one emailed in, and another one is from the staff. So,
Oh boy.
yeah, I'll start with the staff one. We always kind of are intrigued and give you a hard time and everything with all those years you lived in China, and they're now married to a beautiful wife, Fei Fei, from China. So give us a story that might give us appreciation of your time over there.
So when I'm asked to tell a story about kind of assimilating into Chinese culture, the first one that comes to mind is one of the first dates that I had with my wife. It was probably back in 2010. One of our first dates, after dinner, I told her I wanted to take her DVD shopping because it was one of my hobbies over there. I loved going to this place and
Like
just
to
shopping.
rent or to buy?
No, this is to buy.
Okay.
50 cents to pick up a few DVDs. So anyway, after dinner,
Does it come in just like with the cover, or is it
no box?
Okay, no box.
Just a cover. So what we did is dinner's over. We hop on my electric scooter, best means of transportation around there. You can avoid all the traffic. And I take her to this area. There's this 20-story building called Computer City. And she's expecting to go in there. It's just floor after floor of anything electronics. And I drive past it to a nearby neighborhood, kind of go down a dark alley, park the scooter, go up a couple flights of stairs, and I hit this doorbell that's underneath a handrail.
Like hidden?
Hidden. We go inside, and again, wall to wall. It's someone's 2-bedroom apartment, but every room, including the bathroom, is lined with DVDs. And I'm just like a kid in a candy store. It's my favorite thing to go DVD shopping. After a few minutes, I realized that Fei-Fei's still standing at the door, and I look over at her, and she has this look like, "How did you find this place?" And I think it was kind of beyond me because I'd already been there a dozen times. It was like my monthly stop at that point. But it was like even the locals are not going to just get picked up on the street and shown a DVD place. But that was my DVD dealer. Yeah.
And is it in English and it's subtitled, or is it in Mandarin, or how's?
Luck of the draw.
Okay.
A little bit of both. Sometimes you can turn off subtitles. I think it's all Blu-ray now, but at the time DVDs.
That reminds me, in Ecuador, where I grew up, they would sell DVDs, but in the streets. You'd be at a stoplight, right, and they would have all these DVDs. Sell probably, I think they're $1, but this was, I don't know, maybe they're more expensive in Ecuador 15 years ago than in China. Okay, so last business we'll wrap up with is, we have 400 or 500 clients here, a lot of business owners, and in the last 12 months, you've worked with more business owners than anybody here, helping them with liquidity events and different things, making sure everything's teed up, because you really typically in a business have one bite out of the apple. When people help sell a business, they love to say, "Hey, let's get the second bite out of the apple." My experience has been most of the time that second bite is non-existent, or it's a very small bite. But talk to us about what's the biggest mistake you see working with business owners that you feel like they would have benefited from knowing this information maybe prior to selling the business, or it would be helpful to know?
There are two statistics that I think are pretty eye-opening, whether you're a business owner or not. The first one is that 70 to 80% of businesses that go on the market to be sold end up not selling. So that's statistic number one. The second one is, of those business owners that end up selling their businesses, a year afterwards, there's an interview process or a survey that goes out.
Okay.
3 out of 4 of those business owners that have sold businesses within the last 12 months have, quote unquote, profoundly regretted selling their business.
That's crazy. So you're telling me 70%, 3/4 of people that want to sell a business don't, and then of the ones that do, most regret it?
Yes, sir.
Why?
There's a couple of reasons behind it. So I'll say this goes back to the planning piece. This is not just regular financial planning. This is exit planning, which that encompasses a few different areas I can dive into in a second. But what I found is, of those unsuccessful sales or transitions of businesses, most of the time, the business owner is not gathering their what's considered a core team from the very beginning, from day one, when they decide, okay, let's do this. And the core team, think of business attorney, CPA, wealth manager, family members sometimes, if this is going to be an intergenerational transition, or even the executive team, other partners of the business. So honestly, the analogy that we're big medical analogy people. You've had shoulder surgery, Glenn. So Imagine going to see your primary care physician who's going to recommend a specialist who may or may not recommend another surgeon, and the surgeon has a staff, an anesthesiologist, and nurses that are helping along the way, and then there's physical therapy after. Your shoulder surgery isn't successful without all of those professionals involved. And I think sometimes business owners just have the mindset that I've worked my whole life, someday I'm going to hang it up, and there's going to be a dollar amount out there, and I'm going to take it. But without that proper planning, which I alluded to this earlier, there's not just the business plan, not just how am I selling this? Is it going to, a strategic third party? Is this M&A? Is this going to be, a private equity deal? But there's planning on the side of that exit plan. There's also the personal financial side, which again, we deal with that every single day with our clients, but it's financial and it's personal. Because one of the reasons for that, call it 70 to 80% of businesses that don't sell, one of the main reasons is actually just cold feet. It's not that they haven't done the heavy lifting business-wise and built up an amazing practice or whatever they're doing.
Cold feet, maybe because they're not prepared, right? There's too many uncertainty questions in their mind of how things are going to work.
Yeah, and they've been doing it their whole life. This is all they know, right? So to hang it up, even if the dollar amount is there, you can only golf for so long every day for so many days a week before there's nothing else to do. So part of that initial plan is making sure that there's a plan for your personal life when you do hang it up.
You know what? You use the doctor analogy, and I like that, obviously, because I like to use those analogies as well. But when you have the team, we talked about CPAs, attorneys, wealth managers, I think, and I think you kind of alluded to this, but it's important, too, to have a quarterback of it. My son, as you know, recently was in the hospital. He's fine right now, but I felt like one team was doing certain blood work, another team was doing this. In my opinion, from my perspective, the communication was awful amongst themselves, right? One person said we need to do this test. The other one said we already did it, and it came back negative. The communication, you have to have what I would like to call the one neck you can wring if something goes back, right? And I think that's what we try to do for our clients is we know a lot about estate planning and exit strategies, but we're not an attorney. But we can quarterback the whole thing to bring in the right team, whether it's finding the business partner to help sell the business, whether it's the CPA, the attorney, and then make sure it all gets executed. Because it's easy to come into a meeting, I think, and say, hey, Mr. Client, I'm going to do this, this, and this. People don't follow up with what they promise to execute. And I think that's the value we bring sometimes is keeping these professionals' feet to the fire and documenting what everybody's responsibility is and making sure they do it, right? A lot of clients use us, because depending on how they manage it, maybe we make them a little bit more money. But I think another reason is for the financial planning and removing the anxiety and the uncertainty and time back in their life. Me as the consumer of that hospital, the big one here, you know where it is. I don't want to get in trouble with them, but I thought that the communication was lacking. Whereas if you have a quarterback leading it.
And the important part of that is, as you mentioned, the quarterback. A lot of business owners come into the exit planning strategy thinking that they have to be that quarterback. Yeah. And believe me, when due diligence starts, that's the last thing you have time to do is to try to communicate messages from the attorney to the CPA. You need to hire someone that is that quarterback.
There's a phrase that a business coach once told me that stuck in my mind. Dan Sullivan with Strategic Coach. He talks about ask who, not how, right? Same thing. Most of our clients, I think like that. They want the who to do it, not necessarily how. They don't want to be an expert. My shoulder surgery, I don't need to learn how to do it. I'm not going to perform it on other people. I need to know who's going to do it. Same thing with I was talking about my son. I don't care necessarily what they're doing. I want to know who's the one person that's overseeing the whole project, if you will.
And whose neck you can wring.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Tim. I hope everybody enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next time.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Glenn.